G'day guys, welcome back to St. Andros. Something I didn't expect to be building within St. Andros was a second downtown. I've been pretty content with our current one, but the more I looked at the city, the more I realized its potential. Visually, seeing that looming presence of those buildings towering over the city was something that I couldn't ignore. Building the infrastructure for the masses and weaving it around all those old and historical buildings, there's a lot of potential here. I couldn't ignore it, we've got to do it. But how we build it with such a limited amount of space and with a limited amount of buildings for what I truly want to accomplish, well, that's going to be another story. Alright, so just as a bit of context, I am recording this video prior to the Bridges and Ports DLC and the bike update. I'm doing all this with that in mind though. You can see where we're going to be dragging out some of those new bridges, and I think you can imagine where some of those ports are going to go. So all this is prior to that, but I tell you what, we are going to be adding all those things in the near future. I just want to give mods and assets a bit of time to update, so I will be able to dive back into St. Andros and record all of that. But today we are going to be building a second downtown. It's going to sit around this area, and I am of course going to be taking inspiration from Midtown within New York City. This is an area that I didn't really plan to build, but the shape of our Central Park and the direction of St. Andros has really lent itself really well for an area like this. So I am pretty stoked, especially because St. Andros doesn't feel like New York, but it's definitely New York adjacent, which I'm totally after. But that being said, if we're gonna build a downtown, we've got to make room for a downtown. Two things that I've done so far. I've just played around with the positioning of Roosevelt Island. We do need to give it a different name, so let me know if you have any suggestions. I've also stretched out our Central Park, and I reckon that is a much better shape and size. I just love how big it is amongst all this density. But something that is not working is the positioning of our art gallery. It just feels like it's kind of obstructing a bit of that green space. I do want to keep it, and I think it's too big to place around here, so I am going to shuffle him over here. Yeah, I mean, don't pay too much attention to the paths and trees down here. They are purely there as a placeholder. We could do a whole lot better, but I tell you what, it looks pretty nice as a complete picture, and I reckon the positioning of this art gallery just makes a whole lot more sense, especially when we start getting more density around here, which we are about to do in just a moment. I have also made some parking on this side. We didn't have any space on this side, and I do feel like we need this amount of lanes, as it's going to get fairly busy pretty quickly. So that parking makes sense, and I like its positioning. Now, what I have also done off camera is I have actually extended out this land quite a lot. And I've done that because as I've extended our Central Park, I realized that we definitely need more space when it comes to zoning out all that high density. And I think it really starts to give a good idea of how big this city is about to get. For the roads, which we're about to drag out, I am going to be taking more inspiration from Midtown within New York City, and I'm going to keep things really simple, just dragging out a whole bunch of rectangles and keeping it pretty much in line with the rest of the grid. So keeping it pretty simple, not doing anything too crazy, and I reckon that is looking pretty good. We are changing the grid layout around here. It'll just change ever so slightly as there is a bit of a change in elevation, so we'll do that. And this road here, which is such a nice little straight road, this is going to cross our island, and I reckon it'll connect up to this highway, and I'll think about how all that could look. But as I'm dragging out these roads, I am also thinking about the rest of this area too. Originally, I wanted to do something inspired by Coney Island, which I still want to do. This is one of my all-time favorite places, and I was lucky enough to visit a couple of times when I went to New York a few years ago. But I'm now thinking I might build that around here instead, and I reckon that'll make way more sense just given the scope of the city and how much it's expanding. I just think that'll work way better. But something else I am now considering is more islands. Yeah, go figure. Now, you guys know me, I love a good island, and New York City just has a whole bunch of really great ones. I really like Randall Island for some reason. I just think it's a really interesting mix of big infrastructure, a bit of park, a bit of industry. It's kind of an interesting place. It's also home to Hell's Gate Bridge, which, maybe I'm influenced a little bit there. Now, Randall Island is one of those funny islands that is technically an island, but I mean, it barely passes. It's just basically an island because there is a little river that kind of like disconnects it from the mainland. So I will give our island the same treatment. And that's just a bit of a vague idea. It's going to look a whole lot better when we have more stuff around it. And speaking of which, let's get some more stuff around it. We've got lots of demand for residential, which is great, but we could use a bit more demand for office. Just to be on the safe side, because I am going to be placing down a whole ton of buildings, I am going to give most zones a bit of a cut. This is going to take quite a long time because I'm going to be using Finite to essentially scroll through every single type of building that I have and try to find the most spectacular. We've got a lot of great, very stock standard buildings, but I don't want that. Midtown is full of tall skyscrapers and beautiful Art Deco buildings. The architecture around here is just so wonderful, especially around Central Park. Architecture is on full display. So in saying that, it's going to be a little bit tricky to find the right buildings because we do have a lot of really nice ones, but in terms of truly capturing the essence of Midtown, I think it's going to take quite some time. Ooh, I tell you what, when this skyline is finished, it is going to be so nice. Just seeing the two prominent skylines of St. Andros. I bet none of you guys saw this coming. I mean, I didn't even see this coming. But I have been playing around with some of these buildings, just trying to get a good idea of what we can create. And I am going to absolutely struggle to find just unique pieces of architecture that truly capture what it's like to be around Central Park, but that's okay. I have a couple of ideas that I'm going to try in a little while, but I have found a few of them. Like this one in particular is absolutely what I want. This guy down here is pretty nice too, just spliced two of them together. And of course, let's talk about this guy, our newest and greatest tallest building within St. Andros. Obviously inspired by the Empire State Building, it is a pretty nice looking structure. I think I will change his color a little bit. I would like it to maybe have a bit more of a yellowy tone. Oh, I can actually change that. That's great. If I flip around here, I can see that the asset creator has made it so that this is obviously like all brown because it's probably going to be pressed up against other skyscrapers, but I don't really plan for it to be like that. but I'm pretty sure that if I just copy that color and paste it over, oh, that is so great. I tell you what, this is a building that is created by, I believe it could have been Feinbold or Darth. I believe they're the people who worked on this asset pack, and they know what City Skylines players like. The types of buildings that I'm placing down are pretty high land value, so I do need to reflect that. So I will go through and make sure I am covering all bases in terms of services that are around here. Let's get a bit creative here. I'm going to rotate him, and I think we can maybe like drop it down a bit. I'll put it on pause because we're going to be causing a whole bunch of problems. This road just doesn't really work for me. Plus, I do think that we're going to need like access for our subway to go underground at some point. So that will kind of like give him a bit of an opportunity there. And I think we could maybe even like drag a road so that it goes underneath this bridge. Whoa, total coincidence, I promise, but there is actually a hospital that is very similar within Manhattan, pretty much like the same location as where I'm building this thing. Maybe this was the inspiration for this building, but like, I promise, I was literally just flying around and noticed it and was like, hey, that's what I'm doing. So that's kind of wild. What I'm imagining is I reckon that this is an old hospital that has been upgraded over time, and same with this road. This road probably never used to stretch under here, but as this hospital has upgraded and adapted as the city has been further developed, I kind of feel like they have like made this here, and maybe this is like the new entrance. Okay, old hospital with modern upgrades. What would they have done in terms of upgrades? Well, yes, I reckon an extra wing and more research facilities, so this works really well. But then I do also need to leave some space for parking. And on top of that, this is a place within the city where space is an absolute premium. So I don't really want to have any surface parking. And I also need to think about how they would have built extra buildings like this. And this is where I think they would have built it. So just bear with me because I do have a couple of silly ideas. I'm going to drop him down here, and then I'm going to use Better Bulldozer to remove all these silly little bits and pieces that I don't really want. So where would space exist? I reckon space would exist on top of the water and on top of a highway. Yes, I'm going to drag a highway around all of this, and that's going to look pretty great. I didn't really plan to do this at this very moment, but here we are. I do absolutely think we need it. I mean, at the moment the city is doing just fine, but I do think that we are going to be adding way more businesses and people around here, so let's at least establish a bit of a connection. While I'm dragging out this highway, I'm thinking about a couple of things. I'm thinking about how back in the olden days of St. Andros, there would have been a whole bunch of industry and wharves all along the waterfront. And then probably like some sort of large road to connect up all that industry. Maybe even like this road could have been that. And then at some stage that got pushed out and the city replaced all of that space with a highway. As I'd imagine more people were using vehicles and driving in and out of the city. So I think utilizing that old industry that was no longer in use would have been the perfect spot for a highway. But then I'm also thinking that in more recent days, they would use that highway space as a way for, new development. People might like to live where the water is. More people want to live within the city. So we are now trying to build over the top of the highway. I'm going to drag all these nodes really close because I do think that there is not a lot of space to work with. So we don't really have the luxury of having all that green space between the highway. I really like this area on this hospital, so I'm going to use that as inspiration. I'm going to grab the pedestrian street and drag it a little bit further, and hopefully we can turn this into some sort of boardwalk that maybe goes over the top of this highway. And I wanted to get to this area and then really open up so it is a really nice big open space around the hospital. Oh yeah, couple of nice layers going on here. I reckon when we start getting drivers on this highway and people walking along the quay, that's just gonna be so fun. I'm not totally sold on this look. Like, this is fine for a big piece of infrastructure like, well, I guess what we're looking at right now, but I do feel like we could do something a little bit nicer. I'll leave it for now. I've still got a few more to do, but once again, I'm just going to leave it. I have also placed down this building. I'm going to change his colors so it matches our hospital. And then the last thing I want to add for the hospital is some sort of parking facility. I have a few to choose from, but I think I might do something a little bit more custom. This is another block building. I've used a lot of the growables and other bits and pieces, but I wasn't aware that there was a underground parking version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag out a road. And then I'm going to place one of these blocks. And then, let me see. I can't even select it, can I? Come on. Where are you? I might have to shuffle this guy. And then look at this. I can upgrade the capacity and I'm just going to go straight for 1,000. That seems like enough. If I go back to move it and then press undo. There we go. And let's see if people actually park under there. Oh, that was pretty fast. I think this guy's going to the parking. Is he? There he goes. How cool is that? And then when you usually park within underground parking, you then access the street level again through the building, usually through an elevator. So I'm going to drag a path that goes through the building and then dumps you onto the street. And so I've just used Move It to move the building to the side so we can see it in action. And as you can see, people are driving up, dropping their car off, and then they wander up the street. So I'm going to move the building back, and I am keen now to get back to expanding some of this downtown because we have so much demand, and I am pretty keen to see more of this field. Ooh, I tell you what, that's getting nice and full, and that demand is endless. But as it starts to drop. I mean, it's starting to drop because the city is literally starting to die. People are dropping like flies. And as always, it's traffic. It's always traffic within St. Andros. We have so many people moving in and just the worst outside connections and some of the worst roads to handle all this. Luckily, I do think there are just a few little things we could implement that would make a world of difference. First of all, this bridge and highway are being severely underutilized. What I'm going to do is I'm going to continue this to an outside connection. That highway stretches all the way through here and pretty much ends at this point. So rather than it ending, I reckon we connect him up with a bridge that stretches across here like that. Well, it is good to see people using it. I'm going to continue to make upgrades to the highway, but yeah, I mean, all this is super temporary. It's just pretty much to get people from point A to point B. I do have a couple more ideas that I think a lot of you are probably saying, hey, $2, why don't you do this? Well, I know. We should do this. So once I connect up these new stations, we're going to have a full circuit for the subway, which is pretty exciting. I do plan to do a full upgrade to the subway and all of our transportation at some point, but I reckon just for the time being, let's see how this goes. So I've just made 2 new lines for our subway, basically going in that loop. There are 6 stops in total, 1 going in one direction and 1 going the other. Alright, so I have just left the simulation running for about 30 minutes now, and traffic has improved. We still have a bit of a situation going on down here, but that is just going to be the case for a while, as people are just going to continue to move in, which is nice to see, but this is just a problematic area, and it's only going to get better with some major infrastructure work, which we're not going to do today. This is purely just to continue to add density, and then we'll fix him up. But we've made a little bit of an improvement. I did implement a bit of a subway line, and people are using it. Not a huge amount, but I do also think that it's not the best connected system. So yes, we do have our loop, but I have also disconnected a lot of the train line, and the bus network is not working at its very best. So yeah, there are a lot of gaps in our service, but I'm just happy to get at least something down. There are still some things we could improve on, but I'm still inspired to continue to add to this. Because I just remembered that around this area within New York City, there are these little skinny towers that I think are pretty interesting, and I would like to place down a bunch of them. Now, we do in fact have a skinny building. However, in the context of this city, it doesn't really work. And in fact, it's not really a skinny building, is it? You know, like maybe if my city was way bigger in scale, then sure. But this doesn't really work. So I'm gonna have to use something else. If I search for 2x2, we do get a bit of a selection of these skinnier buildings, and I think that these are going to work really well. And I could even stack them up a bit. So if I place 2 of them in here, and then raise him up, that does give us a little bit more height, which I am a big fan of. But there's gonna be some more of them in here. Too many? I don't know. I mean, I feel like I could just chip away at this all day long, but I have to maybe like step away for a bit and just have a bit of a think about the positioning of all these buildings, skinny and regular size. But I tell you what, I do really love the way that it's starting to come together. I've spent a lot of time even just like placing down new buildings and relocating others, and even shifting some of them so they're a little bit smaller. Like our main one, I've actually just dropped him down a bit, but I still need to work on parts of it. Obviously, it's not perfect, and there is still quite a lot left to do. So I feel like I need just to have a little think about the positioning of all this and how it's gonna look and how big we're gonna go for the skyline. And I also want to get some ideas from you guys too. So please let me know in the comments, how big do we go? How spread out do we go? How tall? There's a lot to consider. And far out, look at it from this angle, it is actually starting to look pretty crazy. And it's crazy to think that we're only gonna get bigger and there is still so much more left to do, like all in front of us. But in terms of the skyline, it is absolutely becoming pretty well established. Thank you guys so much for watching today's episode of St. Andros. It is always very much appreciated. By the time you watch this video, I'm sure the Bridges and Ports DLC is out and bike lanes are already upon us. So quite a few things are going to be changing in St. Andros. It's not just the downtown, but I reckon there's going to be a lot of changes that we're going to implement. So if you've got any ideas on things that we can be adding and changing, please let me know in the comment section. There are already a couple of things like a ferry terminal and all those bridges and the full potential with the bike lanes. Oh man, it's going to be very exciting. So that is all to come. But until then, have a great week, and a big shout out to my beloved patrons and YouTube members for making videos like this possible. Mappy, Dancing with Wolves, Alex Arnst, Harriet Du Bois, Thomas Altman, Firkin, Tyler Sipaneski, Capcar, Devil0213, and Kyanosaurus Rex. Cheers legends, catch you all in the next one. See ya.